clinic, $25 million worth of funding for parks, $15 million to remove what are known as refrigerated truck units, which are the dirtiest source of greenhouse gas emissions and air pollution in the South Bronx. And removing those refrigerated truck units will actually reduce particulate matter pollution by 90% in the Hunts Point area.
So by removing,
yeah.
You mean like prohibiting, or what do you?
Yes, so, and it's part of a larger project with the Hunts Point redevelopment. So we secured about $300 million. So maybe I should give some background. So obviously the Bronx is home to the Hunts Point Food Distribution Center. Right? It's a critical link both in the national food supply chain and the local food supply chain. Nationally, because it's one of the largest in the country. It may be the largest in the country. And locally, because it delivers, I think, more than 4 billion pounds of food to 22 million people in the metropolitan area. And part of the food distribution center is the produce market, which accounts for 1/4 of all produce in New York City. So the warehouse capacity in the produce market is so inadequate that it's become dependent on these refrigerated truck units, about 1,000 of them, which are the dirtiest fossil fuels, the worst, right? And so if we take them offline, if we were to take them offline, and now we have $15 million to replace them, we could reduce particulate matter pollution by 90% in the Hunts Point area. Yeah. So that was an example of the kind of mitigation commitments that we secured from the governor as part of congestion pricing. Yeah, and I personally negotiated that.
Do you want to go farther and talk about the resiliency?
Native plants, or?
Native persimmons? No. Resiliency, you're never going to let me live that down. Resiliency issues related to Hunts Point and sort of where the critical risk that whole infrastructure is in because of climate.
Well, I think it's part of the redevelopment, actually, is to make it more flood-proof, more resilient, more sustainable. So it's, I mean, it's a $300 million, that's only the public piece, and there's obviously gonna be a private investment as well. But it's probably the largest investment in the food distribution center in recent memory.
Sorry, could you use the waterways more as opposed to, like, you know, it's by the water, right? Is there a way that you could divert more of you would not be able to divert all of it, but could you mitigate some of that by developing more of our waterways?
Mitigate what
By
exactly?
shipping?
Yes, instead of just using trucks. I mean, I know you need the trucks to bring to the local places.
Shipping instead of trucks.
But using, you know, in other words, you could go down the East River, you could, as opposed to going trucks that have to go through the South Bronx, let's say. Would that be a possibility?
I don't.
Feasible, is it feasible to do that?
I don't know, I'm not an expert on the logistics of the Hunts Point, but I think it's mostly, I don't know, actually, I'm pretty sure, I think what we're aiming to do is to electrify, is to install electric vehicle charging stations so that we can electrify the trucking. That's, but I'm not clear that you can avoid the trucking.
Right. You might not be able to avoid it, but if you could decrease it somehow, and then still use that, it's not kind of all of the above, so to speak, right?
All right, David, then Beryl. Yeah.
Well, I was just gonna say, I think that Hunts Point receives a lot, and that which leaves Hunts Point is sort of last mile.
Yeah.
Which means that you gotta break it down into much smaller trucks. You wouldn't be able to send a huge barge or something downriver.
It wouldn't be the only, I'm just saying that again, if we're looking for ways to just have, you know, the Cross Bronx is such an abomination, it's just, you know, and I think electric would be wonderful, but it's not gonna happen overnight, and again, if you could use something that could transport a very large quantity of things, like the waterways, and then break it down, it's just curious if that's something that people have thought about.
Yeah, I just think even with the waterways, there's no escaping the need for the trucks to actually deliver the.
Fair, 100%, yeah.
I wonder if I know Fresh Direct is not in Hunts Point, but it's right nearby.
In Mott Haven.
And so are they involved, would they be involved in any of this mitigation? They have thousands of trucks.
It has no, it was not part of the, because it's private. You know, frankly, if I was not the congressman at the time,
I know.
but if I had been part of that, I would have insisted on the electrification of trucking
Yeah.
as a condition for approval for that project.
Mhm.
You know, in the Harlem River Yards, we actually killed, I lost Port Morris in the latest redistricting, but there was a proposal for a last mile delivery, and we said no to the project, because we said, we're not gonna be a dumping ground for more diesel truck traffic, without a guarantee of electrification.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
so maybe that's
Yeah.
another place for advocacy.
Yeah.
Oh, I was gonna ask, what about the rail system? We have, you know, they had a big accident at some point, because they were, you know, our rail system is, miles of miles of cars, and only maybe 2 people, running it. Rail system, sounds like that's an alternative that was talked about many years ago. Maybe it's time to look again at that. There might be an alternative to all the trucks. You know, think about it.
I think freight rail is part of the Hunts Point redevelopment.
That was in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then obviously with passenger rail, I'm sure all of you are familiar with the Penn Access project. So under Penn Access, the MTA is gonna create 4 Metro North stations in the Bronx,
Oh, they've been talking about that.
and renovate the Hellgate line, and once it's fully operational, it will be the equivalent of reducing the number of vehicle miles traveled by 80,000.
It's amazing.
I'm just saying that's been
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that,
talked about for a while.
Yeah, we, on the west end, we have Metro North that's really used, a lot of people use it.
I think those traveling from the Bronx to Manhattan will save up to 50 minutes. And those traveling from the Bronx to Connecticut will save up to 75 minutes with the Penn Access project.
Design you with the Riverdale Press,
Yes.
is a question.
So Mayor Adams recently, you were talking about the Hunts Point Market, and he said that he would fund 180 school buses for New York City. So with all of the green vehicle infrastructure,
You said 180,
school buses for the boroughs.
he was announcing federal funding, I believe.
Yes. But I'm interested in knowing if you have any of your own ideas or plans for green vehicle infrastructure here.
Look, I feel like, I think build it and they will come, but it's a catch-22, right? In order for there to be demand for electric vehicles, you need electric vehicle charging stations. But in order for there to be electric vehicle charging stations, you need sufficient demand, right? And so it's a tricky catch-22, but it's not enough to have EV charging stations. We have to ensure that it's fast charging. You know, not everyone has a home with a charger. That's not true. You know, that might be true of some homes in Riverdale. It's not true in the South Bronx, right? And so we need the electric equivalent of gas stations, where it would only take you 10 minutes, 5 minutes, and then you're done. You cannot wait like 10 hours at a public facility. And so that's what we need, is fast charging EV infrastructure in order to produce the kind of electrification that the Bronx needs.
And all of New York State school buses are going electric. That's happening, so for kids.
Because right now, most of the EV infrastructure that we have, it takes, what, overnight to charge, and that's not scalable.
Right, and then there's, the industry is converging on the Tesla charging technology by 2025. It was an industry agreement, because all the different brands have different plugs, and by 2025, it'll all be Tesla, for better or worse, but.
I know you're a big fan of Elon Musk, so.
You know it, you know it. Did you have another question?
Well, I was just gonna say, but even that, to his point, it's still at least 2 or 3 hours, even on a Tesla station.
No, not at all. No.
It's not 10 minutes.
No. You can get 300 miles in very, very quickly at a high-powered Tesla station.
Like 20 minutes or so.
Yeah.
But you were talking about school buses.
Yeah,
That's
maybe
a
not for a
different-
truck or a school bus.
Yeah, I've never driven a truck. truck or a school bus. Although I would love to own a Rivian. I don't know what I would need it for, but that would be awesome. So Riverdale Nature Preservancy, Merrill brought this up, wanted to thank you for co-sponsoring HR 7039, which is the Stronger Communities Through Better Transit Act, which supports public transportation, which one of the conversations we were having today. So thank you for that. And we wanted to ask you to co-sponsor, I'm gonna watch Victor note these down, HR 6492, which is the Explore Act, which will expand access to the outdoors. Want to say anything else about that one?
Well, it has a number of parts to it, I think about 5 different parts, but they relate to access particularly for the communities that don't have access to nature now. So
So that's right in line with our mission. And also 6745, which is the Clean Water Act for All, which was introduced in the previous Congress. You want to have any comments on that one? You may know about that one.
I'm in favor of all of the above. I love outdoor access, I love clean water, and
Outdoor. Yes, Ray. Go ahead.
it sounds like something any Democrat would support. so.
Okay, one more chance at explaining the homegrown.
Oh, okay,
Thank
Ray is
you.
the man, Ray is the man, all right. Ray,
John
Ray,
Ptolemy, who wrote Secret Life of Oaks, he's proposed this network of pollinator pathways, basically natural spaces that would help increase the lives of our pollinator native plants and, basically restore some of the environmental integrity. But the question I actually have related to this, and maybe to draw upon your